All right. So what would you like to accomplish in our, coaching session today?
The main thing would be to see what I need to change, as in self-discipline, perspective, just simple stuff. I guess I can start with changing
Okay.
to achieve my goals better and faster, I guess.
All right. So, what leads you to these conclusions?
Because I know I'm human, I know I make mistakes, I know I can always do better.
So, why didn't this come up a month or 2 months ago?
It's been on my mind for a minute. Then I guess something last week, Monday, Tuesday, I was kind of thinking about it. And I had it kind of felt like I was we're putting in a lot of hours right now with tax season. And and it seemed I'm not catching up with my work like I should have. And then I had a client complain, and it was just a couple different stuff. And I finally was like, I talked to John. I was like, can I, should I talk to you, see what we can do? So it's something I've been kind of, I knew I wanted to do again, go have a different person's perspective and see where I can improve. I guess I just had a couple of triggers this last week that, like, I really need to step up and ask for help. It was pretty nerve-wracking and went out of my comfort zone to do that, but I knew that's what I need to do.
Do you know why it was out of your comfort zone? Hard to do that?
Yeah, because I'm
Why?
one of those people that doesn't like to ask for help.
And why is that?
Arrogance, lack of self-confidence.
Okay. Yeah, you got
I don't.
you got a good awareness. So I love when people say that about themselves because then I don't have to. So you make my job a lot easier when you can acknowledge those things about yourself. There's some level of it. And so that's awesome. So very good. That's beautiful. That's magical. So you wanted self-discipline, you said?
Yes.
And then you wanted, um, what else?
Tips and pointers, I guess, how I can achieve my goals faster, how I can accelerate my progress here at work, I guess.
Okay.
Because if I remember right, you had said in one of your jobs, uh, you had I can't remember exactly how it. You had done some impressive numbers. I just remember that on the initial interview with you.
Right. Yepper. Oh, so did you do pretty good in school?
The first 3 or 4 years, not so much. By my last year, I was bored and had read all the books at school. So yeah, at my first year in school, I was terrible. I
Okay.
was an oldest child and didn't have any older siblings to teach me anything. But I guess once I got caught on, I liked learning by the time I was in my upper grades. And by the time I was in last year in school, it was boring.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's dive in. Anything else before we dive in? Anything else that you'd like?
And not that I can think of right now. I guess it'll probably come up as we talk, but we'll get
All
there.
right. So let's dive into the self-discipline. What is self-discipline to you?
Hmm, that's training yourself and holding yourself accountable and doing stuff even when it's not easy, even when you don't want to do it. It's, it's part of it, I guess. Uh,
Anything else?
it's easier. Oh, it's hard for me to explain self-discipline to someone, to be honest.
Yeah. So your definition is pretty common, pretty standard. That's what most people think it is. And you're not wrong. That's an element of self-discipline.
Hmm.
Um, Most people don't recognize that there's another element of self-discipline, and that is disciplining yourself when you don't do what you should do, or disciplining yourself when you do something you shouldn't be doing. And so once
Right.
we get out underneath our homes and we're away from our mom and dads and we're living on our own, um, that's a lot harder to be self-disciplined because you don't have somebody. It's harder to have discipline. So what tends to happen is the reality of life disciplines us.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
our wife wants to believe in us. Wants to believe and that they made a good choice. And so she might try to kind of intone things and kind of move things and kind of do some stuff. Sometimes guys don't listen so well to that. And they would do well to listen to their wife because, reality is a lot tougher, a lot tougher than a wife or a parent or anything else can be. So
Hmm.
self discipline is disciplining yourself to do things. When you don't do what you should do or do what you shouldn't do, then you discipline yourself, you invoke pain. So with my children, when they were very little, I mean 2, 3, 4 years old, we taught them good choices, good consequences, bad choices, bad consequences. It's pretty simple. And even like at 1 years old, before they could even talk, I'd say good choices, and they say good consies, Dad. Like they couldn't say consequence, they just say consies. So they understood the concept. We make good choices, we make good consequences. There's
Yeah.
bad choices, bad consequences. What gets difficult when we get to be adults is there's short term and then there's the future. And so
Hmm.
often what feels good or doesn't feel so bad in the short term, we're going to pay for big time in the long term.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
So, what do you have three things? Like if I'd say three things you lack self discipline on, can you name three things?
I'm guessing somebody that would work with me every day could tell me better than I could.
So, what that means is you're not really paying attention to yourself.
Yeah. I guess one of them that I can think of right now that I wish I would be more disciplined in is working out. I like to stay physically fit. Uh,
Okay, what else?
I'm trying to think. That's a good question.
If we were to ask your wife what she would think, what would she say?
That's a better question.
So, this tests how attentive you are to your wife. If you say you don't know, well, then I know because one of the things need to be more disciplined to is being attentive to her. So,
Being attentive. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, is there anything like if you ask her, honey, where would you say I lack discipline? What would she say?
That's probably one of them. I tend to have my own wandering mind when she's talking to me. Uh, I guess I am a bit of a procrastinator, so I need self-discipline getting stuff
So, you
done
think
when it.
she would go ahead and say procrastination?
Yes, yes.
All right. And if we were to ask John what he would say, what would he say?
That is something I don't know.
So what that shows is you're not attentive to John.
Yeah, probably.
So he's your most important client, bar none.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so with clients, just like your wife, so when I was your age, I would ask my wife, well, even at my age now, I still ask my wife, periodically I'll say, so honey,
The
one to
first
10,
syllable is
1 to 10, how would you rate, how would you rate me as a husband? And if it's a 2, it's okay. So especially wives, they don't like to criticize their husband. They don't like to give them suggestions unless they absolutely have to. They really like when husbands are self-aware. Just like with me. Like you went ahead and said, at the beginning, I'm like, why are you doing this? And you came up with on your own where you're arrogant and prideful. So you came up with on your own. It's so much easier if you come up with it than if I come up with it. If I come up with it, there's risk that you're going to be like, man, that Mark Boersma is a jerk and he's an idiot. I don't want to I don't want to do
That's
that.
what I'm here for. I'm here for you to be a jerk to me, so I know what I need to do different.
Well, and what I'm here for you to do is to help you to do that to yourself so you don't need
Yeah.
me. Because um because I'm 61 years old, I probably can help you a whole lot in areas that you have no idea. Like you're
Good. Good.
like you don't even know what questions to ask. If I have to go ahead and deal with some of the self-awareness things that you probably ought to be attentive to, well, then then it just I can't help you as well as I should.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
your wife's the same way. She doesn't, she married a man. She doesn't want to be your mom. She
Yeah.
doesn't want to bug you about things. She doesn't want to babysit you. She doesn't want to, and so even 40 years after I married my wife when she was 19 and I was 20, even after 40 years, she says something, man, I try to be on it. Like boom, boom, boom. Like I don't like when she asks twice. Like my rule is just like in business, I should never have to be asked twice to do anything. Once. And ideally, if I'm really attentive, I don't even need to be asked once because I'm out in front of the client. I'm out in front of my wife or my kids. So I'm seeing into the future on what they need. That's when they get impressed. Like that, that's when a client gets impressed when you know what they want without them telling you. That's what your wife is impressed by is when you go ahead and know what she wants before she even verbalizes it. And I'm telling you,
Yeah.
you'll capture her heart. You'll capture John's heart. You'll capture all your teammates' heart. You'll capture your client's heart. When you're so attentive to, like, what is it that they want? Before we got married, we were engaged, and my mom said to me, we were Baptists, so raised very similar to Amish, very
Hmm.
conservative, really didn't talk about sex, much at all. But she did go ahead and say to me, she says, Mark, when you get married, your wife's not going to know what you like physically, intimacy wise. You have to tell her. And that made sense to me. I'm like, oh, she's not a man. She doesn't know. So I have to tell her what I like. And she has to do the same. What do you like? But I realize it's not just in a marriage and intimacy, it's communication, how I work with her on a day to day basis. That's not only good advice for a husband and wife that are newly married, but that's really good advice in business. Like you tell, you tell people, you find out what is it that they want. So you're eager to go ahead, like a newlywed couple, they're eager to please one another. And then something often happens and that's not good. Same thing is true in business. So you can ask John, 1 to 10, how would you rate me? And then always give people to be, be honest. If you think it's a 2, like just say it's a 2. It's not going to hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
understand based on the next dimension principle, a 2 is not lower than a 9. A 2 in the next dimension is higher than a 9 in the previous dimension. So you give people permission to go ahead and be honest with you. And you always go, that's interesting. Tell me more. So you have more clarity on what it is. And so, and then anybody else that you're working with, you're wanting to, anyone you're serving, you want to ask them, you want to get feedback because people don't like to criticize. They just don't because it typically people don't listen. And then there's drama and then there's trauma and then there's all this. It's just so people have just learned don't give people, don't give people input. But that's a killer. How do you grow? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
And then you might
Yeah.
go, then what I do with my wife is I'll say 1 to 10, she gives me a number, and then I'll always go ahead and I like lower numbers because I like a challenge, I like work. So when she says a 9 or 10, I'm like, I'm kind of bummed. I'm like, ah, but I'm ready to go to another dimension. And so that's kind of how I'm wired. And so when she says whatever she says, when a client says whatever they say, when John says whatever he says, anybody you're working with, you know, Mary's just, she can see stuff. Women can see stuff men don't see. So John, he may not even see certain things that Mary does. So what can I
Hmm.
do to be, 1 to 10? How would you rate me as a team member, for, the company? She can see stuff that, John's probably not going to see. And then you go ahead. The next thing you say, and what is it that you like most about what I'm doing as a husband, as an employee, as a, peer, whatever? You always ask, what do you, and you ask that first, what do you, after you get the 1 to 10, what do you like most about what I'm doing? Because, guys, maybe women too, but guys especially, I don't think I think we have to learn to be attentive. And the reality of the real world is that if you're not attentive, you go out of business. Reality is your wife's not going to be happy. If you're not attentive to a lot of things, it's not going to go well with you. So guys, I think have to learn to be attentive. And so you ask what's one thing you really like? So you mapping their mind. So, some might say my wife, she will often say that I'm a really good husband. I don't know if I'm a really good husband. I just try to be a smart one. Like I'm asking her those questions, not because I'm a great husband. It's because I know if I can find out where she's at and I can find out what she likes, I can continue to do that. So often we're doing something for a spouse, or we're doing something for the owner of a company, or we're doing something for our peers, or we're doing something for our clients, and we don't even know they're happy about it. Like we just think, oh, so we don't keep doing it. We were doing something, we stopped doing it because we didn't realize how much it meant to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So my wife, it's the cutest thing. I mean, I don't know. Some of the kids don't think it's cute. I think it's cute. The grandkids have even noticed it. Like when I'm eating, even if she's not at the table, she's in the kitchen or something. She is so attentive to me and my water in my glass. And I mean, she hears the ice because there's always ice in it. She hears it when I sit down in the ice. She knows when my glass is empty, and I don't have to ask.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, like like I don't even have to say anything. I feel bad about it. I'm like, I know. I set the glass down. She's going to hear the ice, and she's going to come in, and she's going to pick that up and get me more water and just the right amount of ice. I mean, I'm like, that's after 40 years of marriage. Like it's,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so that's the kind of things that it's like, whoa, that's some pretty cool stuff. I think women tend to be maybe more naturally better at those types of things than men. I think men just have a hard time. So I have a system in place, and then
Okay.
I ask, what would be one suggestion you would give to help me to be better? Always asking first, I ask them what they like, not because I want to be told what I like. One is I want to keep doing it. Two is people are more likely to give a criticism, a suggestion, a critique after they give you something of praise. So you don't ask for criticism first, you ask for praise first, and then you ask for criticism. What would be one suggestion? A suggestion on what? And then I'm all over that bad boy. Like I am, like I'm a dog on a bone. Like, like for anybody, because it's just I want to be the best husband in the world. It's simple. That's what I want. I want to be the best dad in the world. I want to be the best grandfather in the world. I want to be the best owner in the world. I want to be the best friend in the world. I just want to be the very best. And to be the best, I've got to get a read on, I don't want me to determine that. I want the people around me to determine that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So
That's
if,
what I'm looking for is people around me to hold me accountable and push me further.
yeah, and you got to ask for it. You got to ask for it because they're not, especially in the Amish Baptist community, especially in the Amish community, there it's not a part of the Amish community, it seems like to me, to go ahead and criticize people. I mean, not face to face. Maybe
Not face to face.
right. Maybe to
It's
everybody
a
else.
pretty demeaning culture.
What's that?
It's a well, maybe I shouldn't say it. I think it's kind of a demeaning culture in some ways because they do it behind everybody's back instead of in their face and trying to help them.
I think that's most people. And it's the Baptists too.
Yeah.
It's how the Baptists are too. And so there's a new white paper. I can give it to you, or Elaine or Ginger Ann can get it out to you. It's called, I'm just working on it now. It's called Addiction to Lazy. So we're addicted
Okay.
to being lazy, and that doesn't serve us well. It does in the short term. This is why we do it. But in the long term, it does not. And so I think you'd enjoy that. Now, achieving your goals, and let's put that as number one, because so in the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, he said he researched the great companies and he had a really tough criterion for that. And he said what he found is great companies over the generations, a company that was multiple generations of great. He said that there's three things that he found about that company. It's a culture of disciplined people, disciplined thinkers, and discipline in taking action. Disciplined people, disciplined thinkers, and discipline in taking action. Now, if we don't know what we're disciplined to be disciplined about, well, that's not going to really help us because we have to have the knowledge of what we need to be disciplined about. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So there's something that's called iterations to success. So iterations to success is, let's say it takes 100 steps to go from here to here. So you want to go
Hmm.
from, 50,000 a year to 100,000 a year, or
Hmm.
100,000 to 250, whatever it is. So if you want to go from 50 to 100,000, that's an iteration. Let's say it's going to take 100 steps to do that. Now, if each step goes ahead and takes a year, you're going to run out of life. So you got to get those years down to months. So how do I take a year and bring it down to a month? And how do I take a month, bring it down to a week? How do I take a week, bring it down to a day? Then it gets to be like, how can I take a day down to an hour and an hour down? How can I go ahead and learn really fast? So what I did when I was in my mid 20s is I'm just like, I'm not that smart of a guy. So that's one of the advantages you have of not being so smart like me. Like you just realize, you know what? I'm average or below average. And so if I'm going to make it in life, it's not going to be because of my intelligence. It's because of hard work and because I've got to be a better student. So what I did is I just studied people and I asked people a lot of questions. Um, you know, what's the difference between stupid and ignorant? Ignorant is not knowing what to do. Stupid is not doing what we know. Well, if we're not asking for input, even at 61, like I'm asking for so much input, it's insane from people around me. Because really being stupid is not asking for input. Like I think the smarter somebody gets, the more we know, the more we know we should know that we don't know. I mean, that's what I think. Like the more you know about
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
the more you know about God, the more hopefully you don't know. You're going to find this with your wife. The more you know about her, the more you're going to know you don't know. It's really cool. Like
Yeah, it is.
I
Yep.
recommend it for every man. Get married. That'll keep you humble. And then if you really
Yeah.
and
Yep.
then if you really want to get humble, have kids. Okay. So on the goals, so we want to shrink things down. So how do you shrink them down? And so you're looking for input, observation. You want people almost to be know you as like, I can give Paul criticism. He's fine with it. He eats it for like my international speaking coach. I was 27 years old. And I went through her 3-day boot camp. And she said at the end of day one, she came up to me and she said, Mark, so I'm 27 years old. And she's like, Mark, I have to be honest with you. I'm like, oh, I like that a lot. She's like, I don't know. She says, you are the most god awful speaker I've ever seen in my life. And I said, ooh, that's good. I have no place to go but up, you know? And so it's almost like there's that initial sting, but the truth will set us free. Bible says that the truth will set us free. What does that mean? It means that if we're not self-aware, it means that if we don't go ahead and self-examine ourselves, if we don't know the truth, we're going to be enslaved. That's what it means.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep.
And so then what you do is then you go ahead to accelerate your success. You get John's, like you have a plan, you go to John and say, hey, this is what I want my division to be. This is what, so my goals when I was 27, well, from 23 to 27. So when I was from 23 to 27, the 4 years there that I went from 100% straight commission position, earning $1 an hour, on track to make $460,000 4 years later. I look to accelerate, and you use that word, to accelerate. So how do I accelerate? I remember when I turned 40 thinking, man, I wish I knew at 20 what I know at 40. So 21 years ago, I had that thought, very specific. I remember it. I said, whoa, I bet you when I turn 60, I'm going to wish I knew at 40 what I know at 60, right? Makes sense.
Yeah.
So then what I did is I said, how am I going to accelerate that success? So what I did is I said, I'm going to talk to 60-year-old men. Like, I'm going to intentionally get 60-year-old men and say to them, what do you wish you knew at 40 that you know at 60? And I did a lot of that. And that helped accelerate the learning. John can help you accelerate the learning. But when I moved into management at 24 years old, when I moved into management, I went ahead and I always had higher goals than the leader, than the owner of the company. Like his goals, I'm like, yeah, no. Like so when you have higher goals, higher expectations of yourself, when somebody criticizes you, you've probably already been far harder on yourself than they have been. The key is never allow it to get to your self worth, your self valuation. And I believe a Christian shouldn't, you're creating God's image. Christ died. Like those two things make you special. Doesn't matter. Doesn't Your value as a human being is not dependent upon your marriage, your career, your kids, your family. It has nothing to do with anything. You are just an amazing person because God created you like this
Yeah.
in his image. Like, so when we understand that, where nothing can get through to my valuation as a human being, when I go ahead and realize that, then I can take any criticism. Like anybody, my wife can say, you're terrible as a husband. I can say, you know, I can see that, I think. Can you help me understand what you mean by that? So there's no defensiveness. See, defensiveness cuts out all learning. As soon as somebody gets defensive or they explain themselves, if they're explaining themselves or they're defensive, they can't learn. They just can't.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That leads to a total different question. How do you deal with the defensive person?
So for me, well, I don't know how you deal with them. I wouldn't recommend you deal with them the way I deal with them. Oh,
Well,
so
I know how I would want to deal with them, but
yeah,
yeah.
you're a similar personality. Might not be the most effective. Um, with me, my grandfather, when I was 8 years old, he went ahead and I don't know. I don't remember. All I remember is the lesson. I don't remember what caused it. But my guess is he probably corrected me, and I probably became defensive. That's my guess. And he laughed and he said, Mark, when somebody says something to you, there's some amount of truth. It could be 1% or 99%. It's really not up to them to decide. It's up to you. You need to. So he was teaching me ownership at the age of 8 and saying, Mark, don't get defensive. That's just not smart. He died when I was 9. I probably only saw him 5 times in my life. I wasn't close to him. But that one time, like I've never had anybody in my life ever say it. My parents never said it. My grandmother never said it. I've never read it in a book. I've never seen it in a seminar. Like I've never seen anybody ever say that besides him once when I was 8.
Wow.
And I think back and I think, man, am I glad I was paying attention? I mean, if I didn't go ahead and pay attention, I would have lost that. And that lesson is absolutely critical to everything I do. It's one of the reasons I'm able to learn, internalize things so fast because it can't get to my core, the essence of who I am, because God controls that. He created in his image. And so I can't get to that. So I don't have to fear like the pride, the ego. I don't have to worry about that. I just don't. And
Yeah.
so what
That's
I do is I try to share the story, but by and large, it doesn't seem like adults get it very well.
yeah. So it's okay if I have bigger goals for myself than my boss.
Oh, you want to. Hopefully
Yeah.
your boss probably wants you to too. So you do. So so what you want to do is get all your thoughts on what it's going to take to get to your goals. These are the things that I need to do to get to my goals. So here's the goal. I don't have control over the goal because it's, monetary or numeric or whatever it is. You have control
Hmm.
over the action. So what's the goal? And then you come up with here's, up to 20. You don't want more than 20 actions. So here's the 20. Here are the things that I need to do. And then you can go to your boss then and you can say, hey, here's my goals for my division, my income, whatever. Here's my goals for my income, my division. And then here's the things that I think I need to do. So you share your thoughts always first, and then you get his or her thoughts, you know, on what it is. Once you get that, then we have another conversation and I'll look over it.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I was always too a little bit afraid of sharing my goals open and honestly. I was afraid I'd be undercutting John because I'm working for him. He's paying me. I don't want to
Well,
overthrow his goals either or put mine in front of his.
right system, the right system is if your goals are financial goals, the right system, as you make more money, he makes more money. I'm pretty sure that's not going to be a problem with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just have to set my write my goals down and go over them a little bit and go on, let him look over and see how we can work our goals together, I guess.
Well, yeah, and what you do is, if you go ahead and connect. So when I went ahead and started straight commission, when I moved into management, the owner of the company said, "So, Mark, what do what compensation? You have a base, and then you earn commission, on your own business, and then commission on other people. What do you want your base to be?" And I said $500 a month, and he's like,
Mhm.
"That's way too low." And so what I recognized is my base pay $500 a month. What I recognize is I don't want to get paid a base pay really. Where I want to make my money is when the owner's making money based on sales or
Yeah.
on profit. And so if I've always got where the owner's always going to make more money when I make more money, now we're on the same page because I win, he or she wins, they win, I win. So we're creating a win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I would that's something I would very much like to get in place here. One thing we got to be careful is with what we're doing, we got to do everything right, double check everything. My fear would be it would create a rush workplace, and we can't do that with what we're doing. We're everything's got to be double checked, and that's something I struggled with at first very much. I wanted to get stuff done. I wanted to get them done now. I wanted to get them done fast. And I still occasionally, some mornings I come in here and I just want to get stuff done. Then hey, it's got to be double checked. You got to do it right.
Well, and that's where
Get it.
you're a driver analytic on the one, driver amiable on another. So the driver will tend to do things fast. I'm a driver analytic, so I want to do things fast and perfect in that order. Analytics will want to do things perfect and fast. Amiables will want to do it to where nobody's angry or upset. Expressives just want to have oh, oh so your system in business, you want to do it fast and perfect or perfect and fast. You want to build the system. And so you might have somebody that's super analytic that's checking your work rather than you once you get to certain volume numbers. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah.
So there's mistakes you can make. It's almost like being a husband, a father. You're juggling balls all the time.
Hmm.
And I didn't get told this until, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago. And they said, as a husband, as a father, as a business owner, as a leader in a company, a division, overseeing other people, you have two types of balls. You have rubber balls and you have glass balls. And the rubber balls you can drop, they'll be fine. The glass you can't. You drop a glass ball and it's going to break. And so there are things in business, every business, doesn't matter what it is, there are things you can't drop that ball. That's a glass ball. And then there's things that are rubber balls. You don't want to drop them either, but if you do, so you got to build the system that goes ahead and identifies which are glass, which are rubber, and then how do you go ahead and do all of that? Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I would ask John, say, hey, Mark had mentioned some about you and Jason hanging out together. And so, is it okay if I hang out when you and Jason do? And so I'm guessing that when Jason hangs out, my guess is that Katie, um, or one of his team members probably will hang out together. And so that's Compass Accounting. And so, in a
Hmm.
way, they're competitors, but in another way, they're really not. And so, if you can start sharing best practices, so John is sharing best practices with Jason, Jason with John. And so, like, Synergy, the name, which is my company's name, is Synergy Solutions. Synergy is where the combination of all the parts produce a much greater whole than any one of the individual parts could do on their own.
Hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Other questions?
My brain is trying to wrap over all the information I just received.
Yeah, there's a
I guess
lot.
I can.
Go ahead.
I guess I can think several places where I lack self discipline now. At work, not so much. So I need to talk to John about that and see what he says on that.
And then I
Uh,
would make it a priority, I think, for both you and your wife, but especially you, but her too, to come to Coffee Connections, every month, that first Saturday.
we're at work. We're working right now. After April 15th, we'll be able to.
Yeah, and it would be interesting. It would be interesting. Like, can you go ahead? Can you go ahead and work extra or more efficient before and after to where you get, I don't know, 2 hours or something free? And
I
so,
probably could do that. I could do that. I'm already working 52 hours a week. So, yeah.
yeah. So if you go ahead and, you know, if you go, so before I understood the secret about time, working 50, 60 hours was nothing. When it got to 110 hours a week with 7 kids, that's when it got hard.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. That,
and then on Thursdays at 5:30 in the morning, there's podcasts for young men. And so that would be another really good one for you. On Thursday at 6:30, there's a podcast for business for Coffee Connection. There's a weekly one that's 30 minutes on and off. And so that would be a good one too. So there's a number of different options. The key is like when you get consistency. So a lot of people don't have high standards. When you're around other people that have high standards that are pushing themselves, that's really powerful.
yeah,
Hey,
it
Mark,
definitely is.
the
Yeah.
Young Men's on Fridays, correct?
Oh, sorry.
Not Thursday. Is the Young Men not on Friday instead of
Yes,
Thursday?
you're right. So yeah, so the Thursday is 6:30, and that's the podcast for Coffee Connections. It's a half an hour, 6:30 to 7. And then yes, thank you, Elaine. Friday is the 5:31 from 5:30 to 6.
Okay. Okay.
And then
Yeah.
if you want to email me at any time, you're free to email me at any time too.
Perfect. Yeah.
Anything else
That
you have, sir?
that definitely gave me a lot to think about. Quick questions. I've been having thoughts about taking speech lessons as well. You got any resources for that or any directions you would point me?
Um, I can't believe I didn't forgot it. There's something Toastmasters.
Coastmasters?
Yeah, Toastmasters is a worldwide organization, I believe. I don't know if it costs anything, but they're for
I, I've I've watched their YouTube channel. I've watched speakers. Yeah, Toastmasters. Yep.
yeah. So Toastmasters can be. I've heard a lot of good things about that. If you attend Coffee Connection, um, you know, if you attend Coffee Connection on a regular basis, we can have you get up and speak for I don't know 3 minutes or something. So we can get up and speak. There's a ton of stuff that you read a white paper. You talk about this coach, this session here, what you're like 2 things you're working on, discipline, and goals and acceleration of goals. So there's no substitute for just getting up and doing it.
Right. Right. Yep.
So any
Yep.
opportunity you have to get, but Toastmasters, they have a formalized program on how to do it. And then if you ask that question, so I've got, I had a professional coach for many years, Linda Breakall. And then I've done a lot of coaching with people on speaking actually professionally. So if on any of the
Okay.
podcasts you're on, if when we come around the virtual room to you and say, Paul, what would you like to accomplish? You could talk about discipline. You could talk about acceleration. You could talk about coaching on professionally or talking speech and those type of things.
Yeah.
Anything else, sir, you have?
Not today. As of right now, no. No.
Okay. So there's a lot of young men, a lot of people who would benefit from this, this, this coaching session.
Yeah.
So are you okay if I share it with others?
Sure. Definitely. Yep.
Yeah, they will benefit, they will benefit a great deal, from this too. And so this is, it's not unusual what you're going through and battling. It's cool that you're seeing yourself, you're going after it, you're attacking it, you're moving it forward. That's exciting. So All right, sir. I appreciate it. Have a blessed day.
Thank you so much, Mark. You have a great day as well.
All right, we'll see you.
Appreciate your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Bye bye.
Bye bye.